my whole life. And now we've removed all standards from everybody. This is why you get school shooters. These school shooters should be too embarrassed to even embarrass their fathers. They should wake up and go, I would never do this to my family. And I'll also, this is definitely gonna get me canceled, but I'm gonna say it because it's true. I'll say it by extension for suicide. I don't care what you do to me. I'm Andrew Tate. I cannot kill myself. I can't. I'm not allowed. It's against the creed of my last name. I didn't have ancestors who suffered how they suffered, who went through what they went through, for me to be born to kill myself. That's not the end of my story. I refuse. I absolutely refuse. No matter how bad it gets or what bad situation I'm in, I refuse to do it because I have too much respect for my last name. I won't do it. And I think that a lot of things, a lot of men's mental health, a lot of crises can actually just come back to the old adages of honor.
Think what you will of Andrew Tate, love him or hate him. I absolutely think this is a message that most modern men need to hear, and he's absolutely right. Stay tuned. Okay, so where we last left off, Andrew Tate just came off of that disastrous failed hit piece from the BBC, and we exposed how, look, she just totally made up some of the questions. It was totally ridiculous. One of the biggest disgraces in the history of modern journalism. Well, I think it's then fair to give Andrew now a platform to truly explain himself, and thankfully, the king, the GOAT, Patrick Bet David of Valuetainment, recently, just today actually, sat down and did a 5-hour interview with Andrew Tate. Now, obviously, in this video, we're not going to react to the full 5 hours. We probably never will get to the full thing, but I've watched about an hour or two of it. I've made this little supercut of some of the most important moments that I think are worth talking about. So first, we're going to talk about him kind of exposing the real story behind that BBC interview, a little bit about his time in jail, what he can say about this trial, and then a message at the end just about masculinity and family that I actually found to be quite interesting. Now, I will say, since the Andrew Tate content usually is something that, I don't know, just gets a lot of views, you guys like it, I'm thinking tonight on the show, live at 8 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to do an extended reaction to this interview. So I don't know if we're going to do the full 5 hours, but at least maybe like 2 to 3 of it. We'll definitely sit down and watch the whole thing. So join us live for the extended version of this, 8 p.m. Eastern time live tonight. And be sure to leave a like on the video before we continue. All right, with that said, let's just get right into this. There's a lot to get through. So here's Andrew Tate talking a little bit about the story of that ridiculous BBC interview with the woman who had blood coming out of her eyes. Here you go.
And what's scary about this is Lucy Williamson herself, she was begging me for an interview. The BBC were begging me for an interview. I don't need any of these people. The only reason I even sat down with the BBC is because they were begging me. I can go and just say my own words and get plenty of views, right? But the whole time I was in jail, they were begging me for an interview. Can we speak to him on the phone? Maybe you can give an interview from jail. Can we have an interview? Please, 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 please. And I was saying, why do I want to talk to the BBC? And the BBC were saying, no, we don't want to do a hit piece. We want to come across, we want to be impartial. This is what they're telling me. We want to be impartial. We believe there's a side of the story that hasn't been told.
They always say that.
We're really interested in some of the, let's say, what's the word? I don't want to get this wrong. Inconsistencies in the Romanian justice system. We're very interested in his side of the story. There's been enough hit pieces. We want to tell the other side. We want to hear Andrew Tate's story. And I said no, on repeat. Then they sent me a list of questions. I didn't even ask for a list of questions. That's not who I am. I don't have to script. I never asked for a list of questions. They sent me a list of questions. Here's what we're going to ask. It's about his mental health. It's about the Romanian justice system. It's about the fact he hasn't been charged. His liberty's been deprived. All this stuff. Well, that's kind of interesting. Maybe it's a bit interesting, and the Matrix is obviously printing lies about me, and these are some interesting questions from the Matrix for the first time ever. Okay. They walk in here all smiles and happy, all smiley faces trying to take me off guard. I already had my list of questions, right? It's all going to be nice and easy. I sit down, and they instantly attack me. They put the cameras on first, and they attack me, expecting me to stutter and make a fool of myself. It's kind of like they tried to sucker punch me. I'm in the club,
and they failed.
And they're my friends shaking my hand, and they tried to hit me and knock me out. And this is the thing that's so amazing about it. Yes, I destroyed the BBC, but of course I did, because I'm smarter than all of them.
You know, that's what's funny is they always do that. Okay, I've had the same exact experience. When I sat down and did the Vice thing, which I knew going in it was going to be an attempted setup. They obviously failed to set me up, but I knew that was what was going in. But, you know, when you do the interview, they don't talk to you like that at all. They're so nice to you. They're the kindest ever. They even give you lunch. They come, oh, yeah, you know, we love, yeah, nice to meet you. Even the directors afterwards were like, that was a very good experience. Nice to meet you. You did a good job, blah, blah, blah. I knew after, yeah, they're going to cut me up. They're going to do all this type of stuff. But But I also knew, listen, you can only cut up to such a large degree. And same thing with Andrew, right? At a certain point, like if you the whole time are just giving solid answers to everything, it's hard for them to take a certain point out of context, right? And so that's the same case. But I've had the same experience. They are so fake. For people, journalists out there, for people who purport to tell the truth, they're the fakest people on the planet, because they will just go out there and say, you know, they'll to get the interview, they'll be the nicest people, and then they sit down immediately. They're trying to corner you.
But why should I have to rely on my wit and intellect to destroy BBC with their research team and their plan, their deliberate plan to try and annihilate not only my credibility, but my life? They are trying to put me back in jail, these people. They're not dishonest. They're genuinely evil, and they don't give a shit. And so why should I even sit there and entertain them? I believe I could slip every single sucker punch they throw at me for the rest of human time. I could sit with any of these clowns, and no matter who they sit with,
and
the research team, whatever garbage.
I said this in the BBC interview, but they're not just evil. They serve the regime, or the matrix, as Andrew Tate calls it, right? The journalists, you think, or at least they purport, they're supposed to be independent of Western governments. They're supposed to be the people who hold the Western governments accountable. Hey, look, we exposed Richard Nixon. You know, we're going to be... No, that's not what they are. They serve the regime. They are basically... It's not much different from state propaganda in the authoritarian regimes that Western media and the West claims they're so against. And it's very true.
Come up with. I'll make a fool of all of them. But why am I even entertaining them anymore? What's the point? That was the last chance I gave mainstream media. They lied for months to get that interview with me. Completely dishonest, head to toe. And like you said, they sit with Philip. Are you okay? Are you okay? We heard your mom's upset, that poor old lady. Maybe everyone should stop talking about it because his mom's upset. Let's not talk about it anymore because his mother's old. This guy, Philip Schofield, by the way, for people who don't know who he is, I just learned who he was, but apparently he's a pedophile. He's a pedophile who worked for BBC Kids for many years and was grooming children, and that's how they talk to him, just for the context of that. Part of the club or you're not. You have to sell your sanity.
Tells you a lot, right?
If you sell your sanity, you're afforded protections. That's the reality of it, because if you're a sane thinking person, you don't buy their bullshit. And that's what upsets them.
Yours. How is it that they can keep doing this to you?
So we transition here. Now here's him talking a little bit about his time in jail and the legal case. It's a supercut, obviously.
If you're not guilty, what do you say to those people?
Yeah, and once again, I have to be careful what I say because of the court case. But Romania has a law, or the law in Romania is basically, if you can prove to a judge that it might have happened, they're allowed to hold you up to 6 months during the investigation stage. If I was guilty of anything, I would have been charged long ago. And we're going to talk about charges soon because I still believe they're going to attempt to charge me. But we're now approaching the end of the 6 months they can keep me under a form of arrest for without charge. Typically in Romania, when I was first arrested, the guard said, within 2 weeks, you'll have your indictment. I was like, 2 weeks? He goes, yeah, everyone gets charged quickly.
Yeah.
Nobody waits 6 months for a charge. If they arrest you, they charge you, like every other country, right?
Yeah.
The fact they've waited 6 months and gone into my entire life and attempted to find something shows they don't have a case. Why I believe it happened is because they didn't have a case when they were trying to hit me with this garbage, and they thought, you know what? If we put him all over the news, if we slander his name completely, there was a hotline set up. If you're a girl who's been hurt by Andrew Tate, call this number in the UK. A hotline. So they were attempting to use the media to find what they wanted. Months go by, months go by, months go by. Case file's empty, nothing's happening. My lawyer's saying, when are we going to close this case file? Like, yeah, we're just waiting for some paper.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you know, that is really what shows to me, and it was always my suspicion from the start, but it confirms to me that this entire thing all along has been just all it is, a political hit job, right? Because Andrew's absolutely right. In normal countries, if you actually have evidence, it's not that difficult, right? And keep in mind, they have been investigating him since I think it's March or April 2022. That's how long they've been investigating the guy. They throw him in jail in December, and all this time, it's now June. It is June 2023. You still do not have the evidence to bring any charges forward. And before people say, because they always say this, that's just how the justice system works in Romania. And I actually would agree to an extent that, yes, it is absolutely crooked that it is by the law in that country where you can keep someone without charges for 6 whole months. I think that's a travesty. In the United States, it's like 48 hours to 72. That's the law. But still, regardless, as he points out, standard, you know, usually you get the indictment in 1 to 2 weeks. Okay. The fact that all this time, they still can't find the evidence proves exactly what we thought it was all along, many of us, which is that it's just a hit job. And if they're not going to throw him in jail, which they still might, and I'll talk about that in a second, but if they're not going to throw him in jail, just drain his resources, waste his time, use whatever powers of political corruption, or at least, because I don't even think this is a Romanian government thing, at least they can show to the Western governments that order them to do this, or the EU or the CIA, whatever, hey, look, we tried, at least do something, right? The point is just harass Andrew Tate, screw over his life, and it has nothing to do with human trafficking because there's no evidence of that.
Papers, we're going to close it, we're going to close it, we're going to close it. Around the time I was canceled, things started appearing in the case file again. They start spying on me again.
Yeah, I wonder why that
Very
was.
interesting
Yeah.
that it happened around that time. I don't know if they understood that I didn't have.
And it's really fun. So not to keep pausing, but it's really funny because so many liberals out there will talk about Eastern Europe. They're all these like corrupt, homophobic, fascists, whatever. You know, they call Viktor Orban. They say it's a fascist dictatorship over in Hungary near there and stuff. But suddenly now, when it comes to Romania, another corrupt Eastern European country, suddenly, well, we trust the legal system there. Yeah, they know what they're doing.
I wasn't protected by the political class in the USA. I don't know why.
It's just a joke.
They started to build this case, and they spied on me for all of these months, spending millions of euros, spying on me everywhere I went, trying to find evidence of a crime. Eventually, they get to the end of their legal limit to spy on me, and they don't have any crime. They don't have anything.
Yep.
So in my current court case, we have two Americans who lied, the ones who we have the conversations between them saying they're going to get an Oscar for lying to the police. We have the CCTV of them coming and going. We have their Uber records showing they can travel the country freely. We have their phone calls with their mother where they're saying, yeah, he didn't hurt me, and my boyfriend caught me. We have all of it. We have all the evidence. We have those two, and then there's nobody else who could possibly even take the stand. I don't believe, as high level as this Matrix attack is, I still don't believe a Romanian judge is going to put me in jail with the dossiers. I've seen it. It's garbage. I don't think I'm going to end up in jail. But it's just taking years of my life, damaging my influence, having bad things to say about me, keeping me under control, keeping me locked in a house. That's all they want to do. They have no interest in the truth. There's no victims. There's no one to take the stand.
Do you know who Sophie is or Alice is or no?
Yeah, so the BBC,
Ali?
That's really interesting. So then the BBC says, well, we found victims, because the BBC have done enough investigative journalism to understand that the case is garbage and there's no victims. So they said, well, we found victims. They found one called Sophie first. That was a few months ago. I think I was still in jail when Sophie appeared.
Is that her real name?
No, that's her fake name. So they have a girl with a fake name called Sophie. They don't show her face. They ask me, what do you think about Sophie? How can I comment on Sophie when Sophie isn't real? Firstly, you've made her up. Secondly, I don't know who you're talking about. You're saying that 9 years ago I was emotionally controlling? That is the most subjective garbage accusation.
That doesn't
what
even
does that
mean anything.
9 years ago I said you shouldn't party with those guys in the club. Is that what I said? I don't know what I said. I don't know who she is, if she exists at all. And they're saying 9 years ago you were emotionally controlling. Sophie said so. Who's Sophie? We're not telling you. What's emotionally controlling mean? We're not telling you. What comment do you want me to? If this person even exists, which they don't, then I destroy the BBC, make it very clear to them that Sophie doesn't exist, on repeat, because she doesn't. And 2 days later, Alice appears. What's interesting about this is that DCAUT, the federal agency inside of Romania, along with help from international partners, have tried so hard, spending millions of euros with federal level tools to find a victim so they can put me in jail.
Yeah.
And they can't find anyone. But the BBC just pulls them out whenever they want. The BBC does. Where do these people come from? And I say this every single time. If anybody believes they've been wronged, male or female, by me, go to the police. Go to the police. I encourage you to go to the police. All these people say we don't want to go to the police. We just want to stay on the news.
It's so ridiculous, dude. Like, I don't like Andrew Tate because of this or that. How? Yeah, well, I guess we understand. But seriously, how much of an NPC, how in willful cognitive dissonance do you have to be to not realize the scam and all of this, okay? How many women in his life Andrew Tate has been with, and the most they can find is some British lady from like 9 years ago who said emotionally controlling, which is very subjective, and like that can mean anything, and you can just totally make that up. And it's also something very conveniently you never have to prove, because physical abuse, whatever, oh, here's the scar. Emotional, oh, he said it to me and I didn't like it. It's ridiculous. It's so stupid, okay? And like he said, yeah, the Romanian government's out here trying to witch hunt him, go through his entire life, and they can't find anything. But out over in Britain, some one girl says he was mean. It's so silly. But part of the reason why I said I wasn't entirely confident about the fairness of this is at the same time, it is Eastern Europe. I am very concerned, maybe more so than Andrew, that he might not get a fair trial, right? Because if they can bribe DCOD, if they can bribe the legal system and throw him in jail, who's to say, or they can't coerce Western powers? Because we have to understand, this is not the Romanian government. The Romanian government doesn't care. This is a bigger thing from the European Union, the UK, the US. Who's to say those powers that be don't come in, bribe the judge, whatever it is, make sure it's not a fair trial? The CIA interferes in elections, allegedly, all around the world, at least historically. Who's to say they won't come in and interfere with the verdict of this case? So that's why, if I were in their shoes, let me not, cross any lines, but let me just say I might try to figure out an alternative solution, whether that's, I'm just saying, hypothetically, in Minecraft, in GTA Online, in a GTA Online server, if I was in that position, I don't know. I might find a way to get out of the country. But that's just me. That's just me. I mean, they know the country better than me, and I hope they do get a fair trial. But
what, is that because you're not real? Is that why? That's pretty convenient.
Where the CIA is involved, I don't trust
let's
anything.
Stay on this. You asked a very important.
So yeah, there you have it. Like I said, tonight we're going to do an extended version of this, and I'm sure we'll be able to clip a lot from that. So join us, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to react, like I said, probably not the full interview, but a much longer extent of it. Definitely going to go for a few hours, break it all down, give you my thoughts. But I just wanted to talk about that little initial bit, because that's kind of to us, especially, this is a conservative YouTube channel. For anyone finding this in the comments, obviously the thing we're most interested in is the case and the fact that this is a case of the Western regime going against political dissidents. That's something that American conservatives, Donald Trump, gonna face the same thing tomorrow, deal with a lot, and obviously the BBC, the very lying liberal media there. So yeah, like I said, join us 8 p.m. Eastern time. I know some of you guys don't always like, I don't like when you react to Andrew Tate. Genuinely, I thought this was a very good interview. It was very interesting. It's crazy. There are few figures on earth. I don't even think I could sit down for 5 hours and make the entire thing interesting. This whole thing, incredibly interesting, a lot of interesting points. Again, 8 p.m. Eastern time, join us. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to leave a like on the channel, subscribe if you are new. Tell me your thoughts down in the comments below. Did you think this was a good interview? What did you think of the BBC? Do you think Andrew Tate is innocent or guilty in this whole Romanian justice case? Let me know in the comments. And until the next time I see you, Alpha moves only. God bless. Have a very good day and peace.